want to ask Ms. Gillarducci and Gressler this question. Does it ever make sense to borrow money to consume, to spend? Start over with Ms. Gillarducci.
Yeah, sure. There's good debt. There's good debt.
I'm saying to spend it, to consume it, as opposed to investing it. You know there's a big difference there. So go back to that question. Does it ever make sense to borrow money to spend it in the present for something that is other than an investment?
Rarely.
Rarely. What about you?
Only if it's going to produce a positive return over time.
That's an investment.
Like an,
yeah, you just
oh,
flipped
no.
it to an investment. So I'd like to propose this piece of information. When we came out of World War II, we had the highest debt in the history of our country. But that was the greatest generation. They grew up in the Depression. They fought World War II. We somehow ended up paying off all that debt, building the interstate highway system. Begs the question, how much of what ails us today, when we even display it through our own federal government, that we're a society that wants to live in the present to where you're not investing for the future. And here, I'll point out, in the institution that wants to be the backstop for some of this stuff we're talking about, it'd be wonderful if we could do it. It was 5 years ago when I got here, we were borrowing $1 trillion a year. Now it's $1 trillion every 6 months. Not to mention, somebody, I think you did earlier, Social Security goes broke in 9 years, Medicare in about 4 or 5. And we don't fix even that. So aren't we kind of missing the main issue that maybe as a country, as a society, we've lost sight of actually what builds for a good future? And my point would be that you need to become savers and investors inherently rather than consumers and spenders, which we become as a society and through government. Ms. Gillarducci, comment on that, and then Ms. Gressler.
No, I think you got it right. I mean, the government and businesses are really good investors. The government and businesses.
The government is a good investor?
Absolutely. You just told me the highway bill.
That is a tangible project.
Yeah.
Yes. So you got an asset, and I'd agree there. Infrastructure.
Totally. And human capital, big investor in education. That has a rate of return.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Households.
But have we gone too far on a variety of subjects to be credible as a place that could come in and try to fix the same thing we're talking about that we're abusing here?
I don't buy in on the abuse, but we're together on the borrowing you do as a government should be an investment. Absolutely.
Okay.
I would disagree that the government is a good investor. I don't think it is, and it would be wonderful to talk about having children be able to start retiring at day one, but we have the exact opposite. As you pointed out, debt is the reverse of compound interest. So we have children being born, and already they're immediately burdened with $100,000 or more in debt that they are going to have to pay off in the future. And so the best thing that policymakers can do to create a brighter future for every generation is to not burden them with that debt.
Agree 100%. And I think it's kind of sanctimonious to be talking about it from here when we would be the greatest example that has kind of abused the whole equation of not trying to borrow money to live in the present. It's always a bad business plan. Ms. Gressler, we've got a situation back in Indiana. There's actually an act called the Susan Muffley Act, which was an example of back when government did step in, it picked winners and losers. And again, this had to do with an automotive industry to where certain folks got bailed out, some didn't. It begs the question, too, of when we do step in, can we be in the business of picking winners and losers? And even if we do want to do that, are we financially in a position to pick any winner or loser in our current shape?
No, I think this is a perfect example of how when we do have these systems that are broken and the government steps in and bails out some and not others, that's absolutely unfair. And so the situation with the Delphi workers, those who were unionized got bailed out. They got $1 billion as a package of what was at least $17 billion bailout for the UAW and the big three, without which older workers' pensions would not be there today. And so now we have a situation, unionized, you got $1 billion, same company, non-unionized, they've gotten nothing. 90% of the workforce is not unionized.
Well, thank you. My time is up. I'll part with this statement. Never borrow money to consume it. Get good at investing. Your future will be better off, and I wouldn't count on this place fixing it until we get our own house in order.